Thank you so much for joining us on another awesome episode of Bioenergetics Beat. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And this episode is brought to you today by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and highly effective approach to optimal wellness. It's a wearable device that puts better based frequency in your life and on your wrist. Make sure to stick around to the very end because, as usual, we have an awesome giveaway that you're not going to want to miss out on. But as per usual, you're not going to want to go anywhere anyway, because my next guest is also a dear friend of mine, and he's just absolutely amazing, just a wealth of information. And we're going to be talking about energy, because how many of you out there are just sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Like, raise your hands. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Evan Hirsch to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on, Heather.
Absolutely. I thought, by now after my podcast, your podcast, now this one, it's like, are you getting sick of me yet?
Never.
But we always have so much fun. And
We
you're
do.
always just like I said, I'm always learning something new from you. You've got so much amazing knowledge and really taking it from a different perspective than a lot of people are out there. So I just really enjoy the fresh breath of air that you bring to the functional world, right?
Thank you.
Yay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get started in this world?
So my first experience with chronic fatigue was actually my older sister. She came home from college, and I didn't realize what was happening. I was in high school and having the time of my life, or the trauma of my life, and
I'm
and
like, what high
she
school did you go to that you had the time of your life? That was
right.
not my experience.
Right. Yes, it was high school, right? And then she kind of went into her room and like didn't come out. And so I didn't really realize what was happening at that time, but in hindsight, that was my first experience. And then when I started my residency, I met my wife. This was in 2004, and we fell in love. And 3 months later, she couldn't get out of bed, and that lasted for the better part of 3 years. And so that was really my first experience when I was actually a professional, and I should have been able to help somebody. But the reality is that I couldn't. I was working 80-hour weeks doing my residency, and even all the people that I spoke to, they didn't have anything to offer. So she did her own research, found some naturopaths, and they were somewhat helpful. And she was able to continue to run her business. And then we got married. I graduated residency. We had a child. I started my own practice in functional medicine. And then a couple years after that, I ended up getting chronic fatigue, and I had it for about 5 years. And it just about destroyed my life, destroyed my relationships, destroyed my business. I was sleeping underneath my desk. I was already practicing functional medicine, and I was taking a bunch of supplements, and I was not getting better. And then after napping under my desk for like the 100,000th day in a row, I was like, okay, I got to do something different. And I went on a mission of finding all of the potential causes. I knew enough to know that if I found all of my causes, that I was going to be successful. And so I really ended up going into environmental medicine and learning about heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and then trauma in order to realize that these were actually the real root causes. And yes, it helps to replace your adrenals and your thyroid, et cetera. But the reality is that these toxins have to be removed from the body. So I wrote a book about it, and that's become my mission. And then, of course, long COVID showed up, and that dovetails right into the work that I'm doing, specializing in chronic fatigue and ME/CFS.
It's funny, the little buzzwords that hang around. I remember when I graduated FDN back in 2013, and adrenal fatigue was all the rage, right? And
Right.
you'd hear about the pregnenolone steal, which they're finding out is actually really not happening as much as they thought it was.
Mhm.
But it made sense at the time. Same thing with adrenal fatigue, but really you still have to keep going, upstream, downstream. You still have to keep going, right? That's not the end product. Why are your adrenals fatigued? Granted, yes, in this fast-paced artificial world of ours, definitely is a stressor, but there's so many more things to it, correct?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it is all of those stressors. It's the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, and the energetic, like with the Nikki.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, so what did you, when you started peeling back that layers for yourself, what did you find?
Yeah, so I found 30 some odd different causes. Right now we're up to about 38 different causes that we look at. And I had 30 of those causes. And so, and it really is a process. I mean, that sounds overwhelming, I know, but it's really this process about figuring out the causes you have and then matching them up with a treatment that works. So when I tell people, okay, the simplest way of looking at this is you find the causes you have, you take the treatment for each of those causes that works, and then you have somebody like me or you in their back pocket to help them along the way, to answer those questions that inevitably come up, to navigate those bumps along the way. So that's kind of like what I found. And so I had to proceed down that path. And with every cause that I found and resolved, I just kept getting better and better until I realized, well, yeah, until I got really great energy. But then what I really realized as a big aha, just like the last 6 months, is that everybody who has chronic fatigue has all of those toxic five that I just mentioned, the heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and trauma. Like you can't get to a place of having fatigue and all of the associated symptoms like brain fog and body pain without having those toxins, all of them. It's just a question of how much of each of those you have. And
Oh.
so, and they all have to be addressed. So I don't even test for them anymore. I
Oh, I
just,
know, right?
I
I
just
don't
go
run
after
as
them.
many labs as I used to because we just start to see these patterns over and over and over again. They've made some really good intake forms out there too. If you can use your clinical correlation with your intake forms. Yeah. And that's one thing I really admired about you in the beginning is because there's a huge, of course it's conflicting information. There's some practitioners who take pride on taking their clients off all their supplements, that they're taking way too much. But in my personal experience, I still take, a handful of supplements a day because of all the deficiencies I've had through all the years. And that's why I function so well. Like, why on earth would you want to take those from me? And I continue to run my labs, and my labs look awesome. Why would you want to take those from me? And you were one of the
Right.
first ones that you're like, see all these issues? You're going to be taking a supplement for each one of those. And I was just like, oh, hallelujah. Thank God.
Yeah, well, and I think, and the goal is always to get off as many supplements as you possibly can, but you're exactly right.
In the
Um,
beginning.
it,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And in terms of replacing a lot of the deficiencies, the adrenals, the mitochondria, the thyroid, like you need to boost all those things. You have to work on your lifestyle habits. You need to make sure those are optimized because everything works better. But when you remove the toxic five, then you require less supplements in general, to kind of replace a number of those deficiencies that a lot of people think are caused by their genetics, which in reality, it's really those toxins that are leaning on your genetics that are causing those deficiencies. And you're not going to have those deficiencies when you get rid of your toxins.
Boom. Wow. This is, I know, right? Where's my mic? I want to drop it. Actually, I did buy a prop just because there was just so many people, amazing people I have on here that I just thought it'd be an awesome segment, but I've never really gotten a chance to use it much because I'm a dork. Anywho, this is a great spot. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive deeper into those top fives. What are some of the ways that we can handle and do things, to help, and, how long it took you, and just kind of diving deeper into your story with fatigue. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Steve. I'm an engineer, a biohacker, and a dad, and I love my Nikki. I use 3 different programs on this one mostly. In the mornings, I run Energy Boost, which honestly is about the equivalent of a cup of coffee. I still have my coffee, but this does make a difference. After work, I run my stress and anxiety program, and that takes me from being like, task mode from work to really kind of chilled out dad mode, which is nice. And occasionally, when I need it, I run the pain program as well. I actually tore my ACL last September, middle of September, and I was running again by middle of October. No surgery, no therapy, just the pain program once a day. So I've worked with red light therapy for several years now, and like I said, this is just about my favorite because it is so easy to use. I just put it on my wrist in the morning, run it all day. Don't even notice it's there except for how I feel. So I love it.
Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. WeAreNikki.com.
Yay, welcome back. Let's dig deeper, shall we? So, tell us a little bit about kind of your methodology and how you work. And, is there a specific order that you tackle these things? Because you say you don't do labs, so you assume that, most people are dealing with these kind of 5 issues. So, dig a little deeper into that, if you will.
Yes. So I have a 4-step process that I take people through called the EnergyMD Method that I've been working on for the last decade and refining over the course of time. The first step is to figure out what causes somebody has. So you can't really have fatigue unless you have a combination of the toxic 5 plus adrenal and mitochondrial issues. Okay, so those are kind of like a given. And then the other ones are kind of like up for debate or up for assessment. And so there are some labs I recommend, but 90% of all the causes that can be determined by symptoms and history alone of those 38 different causes. Some of these, so when we classify these different causes, we're looking at deficiencies. These are things that are not in the body that are supposed to be. A lot of people have been taking supplements for these for a long time: adrenals, mitochondria, thyroid, vitamins, minerals, neurotransmitters, and then the lifestyle habits. Not enough good food, not enough good water, not enough good movement, not enough good sleep. Okay. And then the toxins are things that are in the body that aren't supposed to be there. These are the toxic 5, the heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and trauma. Almost forgot that one. Can't forget trauma.
Can't forget the trauma.
So first step is to figure out the causes you have, and then the rest of the process is just matching those causes up with the treatments that work. Now, the second step is to replace the deficiencies. And oftentimes people say, yo, Evan, you just told us that this process is all about the toxins. Why are we replacing the deficiencies? Well, when you work on the deficiencies, it increases your resilience, it decreases your stress, it decreases your inflammation. Everything generally works better when you're optimizing your deficiencies. So especially what I call the big 3, which are the adrenals, the mitochondria, and the thyroid. And so we want to do that because it is stressful to remove the toxins in step 4. So we got to set the body up for success. So we replace the deficiencies in step 2, and then in step 3 we open up the exit pathways or the drainage pathways. So this is liver and kidney and lymph and neurolymph, which is in the brain, and gallbladder and intestines, so that there is an exit strategy or an exit pathway for the toxins. Right? Because when you start to grab the toxins in step 4 and start pulling them into the lymph, into the blood, and trying to get them out of the body, you have to make sure that those pathways are open. Because inevitably, if you have fatigue, if your energy is lower than you want, if you've got a bunch of weird symptoms, it's because these pathways are clogged. And so you have to unclog them and then make sure that they stay open so that you can get these toxins out.
I think that is probably one of my biggest gripes with traditional Western medicine, that whole cause, treatment, and then they just throw, for me, I was undiagnosed Lyme disease, 27 years, mold toxicity, heavy metals, parasites, right? And they just started throwing napalm at a body that hadn't been working right for decades. And I wasn't pooping on a regular basis. So no, those exit strategies weren't open. And man, like I thought I was going to die. It is a horrible, horrible feeling to feel that toxic. So it is so imperative that we do things in a proper order to, mitigate a lot of these horrible symptoms, Herxheimer responses. It's just sad that there's still so many, practitioners out there that'll just go straight to a kill protocol and not focusing on opening up these drainage pathways first. Like it's imperative.
Yeah, and it's not even just the conventional doctors, I mean, it's also the functional medicine doctors. Like a lot of them, 95% of them don't have the knowledge around these different toxins because they can replace the deficiencies and get, the majority of the clients that they see well. Right. And so they haven't had to learn about the toxic 5, the heavy metals, the chemicals, the molds, infections, the trauma, which are all like a master's degree that I've had to go through and you've had to go through, right? Like it's a ton of information. And so why do it unless you have to? And I had to help myself. I had to in order to help my clients, because when you get good at this sort of thing, then you get all of the most challenging cases and you have to keep up leveling and learning more and more in order to keep getting better at helping people. So that was my experience. So unfortunately, there's still, you can't just trust your local doc. You got to go for somebody who kind of specializes in what you got going on and who does this all the time.
Yeah, and grabbing, having to live off of 3 Starbucks coffees a day and a Monster drink and, all the sugar to keep yourself going, like that's not normal, folks. And it
Right.
breaks my heart. I got into an Uber this last week and this guy pulls out this ginormous Monster drink and I thought my head was going to explode. And it's like, there's a better way. But,
Right.
of course I want him awake while he's driving me. So go ahead and drink your Monster right now. I don't want to take that from you just yet.
That's so true. Yeah, unfortunately, we have these habits that are, now acceptable, caffeine, and I mean, even taking naps in the car, there's like a whole process around, how to get into a 15-minute nap really quick and then be able to get out of it. And um, we shouldn't have to do that. I mean, I understand the whole siesta thing, and maybe there is something evolutionarily that's
I was
kind of
gonna
good
say
for us,
I've
but
got the Mexican in my blood, and I'm not sure I will never not take a nap. And I am that 15-minute person. That's all it takes, and then I wake up and I'm like ready to roll again. But yeah, no, I get it, and it would be cool not to have to, but at the same time, like I don't know, I'm a fan.
Yeah, well, and I'm kind of torn on it, but what I do see is that people who do need to nap when they come see me, when we fix everything, they don't need to nap anymore. So it's kind of like, is napping pathological? Oh, that's a good name for a YouTube video I should do. But yeah, it's if you can, there's a number of strategies that we can use, and the question in order to get through our day, and the question is, do we need to? Is there a message that there's something underlying that if we resolve it, then we don't have to use those strategies?
Absolutely. So obviously the energy frequency on the Nikki is one of the ways that we help deal with it. And it's actually quite insane. So like it never failed. Wednesday evenings when I go grocery shopping, I always would hit a wall. And when Heather hits a wall, she can be kind of bitchy. I don't mean to be. I know it's hard to imagine, but I can. And so I get a little short with the cashiers. And so I was like, I want to do an experiment. And I hit energy before I went. And by the end of the evening, I was like being friendly and playful. And my husband was like, whoa, was that just you back there? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like I still have energy to be nice because I try to tell people like the PSA, right? Be nice to the Karens of the world because Karens usually don't become Karens without some sort of validity behind it, right? They're not happy, they're tired, they're not well people. So be kind to them. And so it was just such a cute, an awesome blessing, and what an awesome little like boost. But what are some of the cool takeaways, even one or two that people can start implementing today that'll kind of help, take some of this burden off their body and get them a little bit more energy?
So the lifestyle habits really are the easiest thing to do where people can feel most empowered. I mean, just drinking, increasing their water intake, by, up to ideally 2.5 to 3 liters of water a day. Making sure you're getting enough sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night. Making sure you got blackout curtains and that your sleep really is protected. You don't have any animals waking you up in the middle of the night. If somebody's next to you is snoring, sleeping in another room or putting in earplugs or something like that. Um, and
I
then
have separate beds and it is the best thing like separate bedrooms, and it is the best thing in the whole wide world. I don't know how people do it. Like I need my own space to recharge.
Right. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Some people are like, "Oh, but what about intimacy? Like you get conjugal visits." It's not it's
I would have to say that today. Hey, baby, want a conjugal visit?
right. It's not an issue. But yeah, sleep really needs to be protected.
Amen.
Yeah. And then, making sure that you're optimizing your food, and oftentimes this means removing foods which aren't the most supportive for you. So sugar, gluten, dairy are kind of some of the worst ones, but another way to look at it that's a little bit easier is eat meat and veggies as much as you want, and then have some fruit, and then you can cheat a little bit over here on the side. But that's kind of like, the more that you do that, the better off you're going to be, and you just kind of have to rethink sometimes how you're eating and get some additional support. And you can now with ChatGPT, it's kind of amazing. I was planning my Passover meal last night, and I asked ChatGPT like to create me a menu of traditional foods that were gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free. And then I asked it to give me recipes and then give me a shopping list. And I got everything. And then I asked it to time everything out throughout my day, so I knew exactly kind of like what I was doing in between meetings.
Shut up.
Yep. So
Dude, you just gave me goosebumps the size of Texas. That's awesome and creepy AF at the same time.
yeah, so there's so many tools that you can do, and you can take the foods that you normally cook for your family, and you can say, okay, make these gluten-free. What does that look like? What are some of the products? What is that grocery list? Because that's the easiest thing, is just to go gluten-free first and just switch everything over to gluten-free options, but you're still making the same foods, and you'll start to feel better right away. So those are kind of the big ones that I would say to start with.
Happy Passover, by the way.
Thank you.
But yeah, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. So if people wanted to learn more about you, how do they find you? How do they find out more? And what does working with you typically kind of look like?
Yeah, so I'm at EnergyMDMethod.com. And you can text me from that page. There's a little bubble in the bottom right-hand corner that comes to me and my team, and we can have a conversation, see what's going on with you. We can jump on a free 20-minute call to see if you're a good fit for one of our programs. And our programs consist of a combination of different features. So we have one-on-one calls with me, with my health coaches. We have group calls with me and my health coaches, including my wife, who's a trauma-informed mindfulness coach.
Ooh, that's
So we
awesome.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about mindfulness and trauma. And then we also have an online community where I guarantee a response to any questions you have in 2 business days. Because pretty much the reasons why people don't get well is they don't find their causes, they don't have the correct treatment for those causes, and then they don't have support in a timely fashion in order to navigate the bumps along the way, right? So our programs are built to address all of those things, so people can find all those, can navigate those issues and can get better as soon as possible.
That's awesome. Everyone else also make sure to visit wearenikki.com/podcast and enter in BioBeats for 10% off your Nikki. And like I said, because we love our customers so much, in a way that we show appreciation is we give away a free Nikki on every single episode. So you're going to want to go check out. Yeah, right. You're going to want to go check out the show notes to find out how to enter in for that. And just, make sure to stay tuned. Good luck and have a healthy day. And thank you for joining us so much today. It's always such a pleasure talking with you. And like I said, I always learn so much from you.
Thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
Have a great day.
There's a new word for wellness, Nikki. Nikki, the bioenergetic wearable designed to help you feel better and perform better. Other wearables just track how you're doing. Nikki is about helping you do better. Touch the Nikki screen to choose the frequency you want for what you want to do and how you want to feel. Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. wearenikki.com.
Hey there, my name is Jer. I'm an art director and a graphic designer. My wife and I have 2 grown sons. Both are starting their young careers apprenticing in their fields of passion. And then there's our favorite son, our 7-year-old puppy, Andre. Andre has been the best addition to our family in the last decade. When the pandemic hit 3 years ago, my career was turned upside down. I started working as a contractor for a few clients and working from home. I haven't looked back since. My schedule with work is hectic and often stressful. I have 2 ways of dealing with my stress and anxiety. Number 1 is my dog Andre, and number 2 is my bioenergetic wearable, Nikki. When I need help with my work-life balance, I use my Nikki in stress and anxiety mode. And I have a puppy break. My Nikki touchscreen watch is pretty easy to use. It's cool that I can dial up individual frequency sets. When Andre is ready to go, I tap energy. I've been a longtime hockey coach and play in goal twice a week myself. I find the pain mode has reduced the inflammation in my legs in particular. The nighttime mode has been great. I charge my Nikki every other day at my desk. I've been wearing this cool tech for almost a year. On the latest update, I see there are some new frequency bundles. There's morning, afternoon, evening, on top of nighttime.
Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. wearenikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Freemedica. Freemedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.